Welcome everyone to Soundtrap 101. So here we are going to go through everything that you need to know regarding Soundtrap. This video will serve as a map for all of you new joiners and even those from intermediate all the way up to advanced. Everything you need to know where you're at and then also where you want to go. So with that said, let's continue on with the video. Hi and welcome everyone. I realized that we don't really have anything for you new joiners at Soundtrap. So here is a video for all of you out there that just got started and want to know how to use the tool. Now, the first thing that you see on your project page as soon as you log in, on your left you have your navigation bar. Here you can see your project, your messages, podcasts if you have them uploaded to any of the streaming services. You have your learn section, and if you're a student, Soundtrap for Education. At the bottom you have the latest release of Soundtrap Originals, and Soundtrap Originals is a bi-weekly released sound pack that comes out with different genres, different types of styles, everything that you might need. If you want more in a specific genre, do leave them in the comments down below because we really need the inspiration. Now, as we move over to the full page, we have a big button saying Enter Studio. So that one's where you get into the studio. Then you have a bunch of different demo projects here. I, for example, love the Jolt one. And here, if you click one of them, you get into the full demo project. You can try it out. You can see how everything is structured and understand and learn how arrangement works, how different instruments are used, how different loops are used. It's a really great starting point. Further down, you have invites for people that want to collaborate with you. You have starting collaborations with new people or people that you regularly do collaborations with. You have your recents, and then you have your full projects page with all of your projects. You can organize them in folders here. Now, let's go back to the big Enter Studio button. So let's jump in here and let's see what we can do. Now, when you get to this page, you have two options. You have music and you have podcasts. And this sets the studio into a bar and beat-based studio for the music one, or just a time-based one for podcasting. There's also a different tab here for the demos. And here we have demo projects for all of the different releases in Soundtrap Originals. This comes out every 2 weeks. You get a full project. You can try it out. But for this video, we're going into new project and we're going to music. Once you get to the studio here, let me talk about the different sections. So at the bottom, you have your transport bar. So this controls the master volume. What you finally export is not going to be controlled by this master volume. This is mainly for your own listening. Then you have the little transport timer where you see your times. You have all of your transport buttons. You have record, you have stop, you have go back to start, play, and then go all the way to the right, basically. Then you have your key, your tempo, and then also here you have your metronome, and you can set your metronome in different types of sounds, set the volume for it, and also the amount of count in. If you set it to 1 bar, you're going to hear 4 beats before the recording starts. If you set it to 2 bars, you get 8. Now, on your left side, you have all of your track headers, and here you can add a new track. So I'm going to do that just for the sake of the video. Adding this shows you your new track. So here we have the grand piano. In the grand piano, we have record enable. So this allows you to record to that track. So if you have multiple tracks open, you know exactly which one is being recorded on. Then we have the automation track and the automation lane where you can control different parameters over time in your project. So if you want to fade something out, you use the volume one. If you want to do one of those EDM sweeps where you do that, use the sweeps. And if you want things moving from left to right, you have pan. Then we have just a simple volume knob. And finally, we have the solo and the mute buttons. So solo, the headphones, will allow you to listen to that track only. And mute will mute that track. Simple as that. After that, the big window that you see is your arrange window. The arrange window contains all of your different tracks, all the different regions, and what is being played on those tracks. So if you click here, this little red blob right here is called a region. Also in the arrange window, you have your timeline. So here, for example, if I wanted to listen to something between 1 and 3 only, I can set this little loop bar. And this loop bar gets activated as soon as you click it. You can see the color coordinated button on the right side also to turn it on and off. Here you set your full range here, hit play, and it will loop back around as soon as it reaches that part. Really good if you want to tweak a specific section of your song. You can listen to it multiple times and you don't have to like move the playhead back and forth all the time. Then we have some simple controls on the right. We have the little magnet, which is snapped to grid. The transport bar is separated in different small sections. So depending on how far you zoom in, you get even more of these small increments. So these increments is what the snap to grid follows. If the snap to grid is off, you can shift this freely. But if the snap to grid is on, you shift it based on the grid. This goes for everything. This goes for MIDI notes. This goes for your regions, everything, all of your edits even. So if I'm taking snap to grid off and move the playhead, it moves freely. So for the sake of starting out, I would recommend having it on. Then you have a little settings wheel here. You can set your grid size, making it automatic on how it snaps, how big the resolution of your snapping will be. You can set it to different divisions, or you can just have it automatic based on how far you've zoomed in. You can also set your time signatures here, and you can also change your ruler, which is the beats and time. So that is one thing that if you set it to podcast in the beginning, the ruler is automatically set to time. Now, here also you have your quick action buttons, and they are browse for loops, which opens up the loop tab. Let's close that down. You have the patterns beat maker, which allows you to create a drum beat using only the patterns beat maker, which is this. So this is what is called a step sequencer. And these small divisions that I was talking about the grid is exactly where this is being placed. If you place one on the first division of 4, you get a 4 on floor beat. So listen to this. And every other box is just a division of that. After that, we have play the synth, which opens up a synth instrument so you can play it. When you have the synth open, you can play this on the keyboard. As you can see, there are different keys assigned to it. So Q will play that note, E will play that note. After that, you have add new track, you have an import file button, and you also have invite a friend. So if you want to collaborate, you can do that too. On the far right, we have 4 different tabs. These buttons correspond to each different tab. So first off, we have the loop tab that we talked about before. Here you have all of the Soundtrap originals along with a bunch of other loops. Something that Soundtrap originals does a lot is having these full instrumentals, but also with that, you have the separated tracks there. So you have your hi-hats, you have your vox, you have your bass. So that is how everything is structured in Soundtrap original releases. You have a bunch of filter text that you can make use of. Either go for originals, you want a synth, you want a guitar. Also, you can free text search. So if I wanted to look for dog bark, let's say, we only really have one dog bark as effects. But one great thing with Soundtrap is that we also have an integrated library with free sound, and they make an amazing library of different recorded audio. So here we have small dog, dogs barking. There's a bunch of different other effects, so you can check them out. So if we don't have anything, they are bound to have it. Now, moving on to the next tab, you have your collaboration tab. Here you can invite people that you want to collaborate with. Here you can send their emails, or you can just copy this link and send it over to them using whatever messaging service you want. There's also a call feature that you can use. So if you're working with somebody and you want to work on it live, you can call them and have a video chat with them, and they can also listen in on what you're making. Next up, we have the comments feature. Here we can comment on different parts of the song. So let's say I wanted to comment on specifically this region. I can right click and I can click add comment. Once the comment is added, it shows up here. For active, you have the ones that like maybe you want to make some edits to it, and you have resolved ones as well. So you can just hit this and it goes into resolved. Now we go into FX. FX are different processing units that you can use for your sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a drum track. Let's go with this one. So here we have brick 2. I am going to go into the FX section of it again, and I have the track selected. We know that these are going to be added to it. So if we're just listening to this little part, I'm going to use the cycle feature again, or the loop feature, and play from there. So in the FX section, we have color coordinated the different types of effects. So on purple, we have distortions. On pink, we have different modulating effects. And with modulating, I mean that they're moving over time. So for example, an auto pan will shift it from left to right as you're playing. And you can set the rate for this. You can set the depth for this on like how far left it's going to move, etc. And the same thing goes with everything else. So you have instant sidechain that modulates volume over time, so it ducks at certain moments, and then other types of effects like that. On blue, we have space-related and time-related effects. So here we have mod delays, echoes. That is a delay. For a more roomy vibe, so you can hear here, I'm going to add the reverb to this track, and then that opens up the full track menu. So if you want to listen to a reverb, add more. So that is more of adding space to your track. Now, in the next one, we have the yellow. And yellow is things like equalizers, we have compressors. Moving on, we also have the green ones, which are more utility-based and a little bit more specialized, I would say. So we have de-essers, we have noise gates, we have vocal clarity, vocal doubler. And finally, we have the light purple ones. They are amp emulations. So if you want to connect your guitar, your bass, or anything like that, you use those. Now, I am going to add a clipper and I'm going to add a reverb. So now these two are added to my track, as I can see. So here we have a bunch of different options, and there's a bunch of different knobs that you can tweak. One thing that I wanted to note is that mix means how much of the effect that you want. So if you think of it of being one dry signal, which is just the sound as is, and one wet signal, which is the processed sound, that is what mix controls. So it goes from dry to wet. So if I'm listening to, for example, the reverb with it maxed out, if I go to 0 on mix, it's going to be completely dry. And then if I pull mix up, you get more and more. And this big knob on the reverb controls other elements. So there's not just the mix in here. So that's why it's good to keep note of what mix does. With low cut and high cut, a lot of our effects have that as well. And that is going to affect only the wet signal. So if I got it on full mix, here you can listen to it. So low cut will cut out the bassy frequencies out of the signal. So as you listen, thinner and thinner. And the high cut takes out all of the high frequencies and the treble. So let's listen to that. One more thing to note, when it comes to controlling all of these knobs, for any future reference, let's say you have the knob right here. If you wanted to add to it, click the knob and pull up. And if you wanted to remove some, click the knob and pull down. So there you go. Now we have a few different buttons up here as well on the clipper. So we have the on button, which turns it on and off. This goes for all of the effects that are available at Soundtrap. Same thing goes with the X button, which basically just removes it. There's also an element of clicking and dragging here in the center, and you can move in which order these are going to be processing your audio. So here in the effects rack, you have it from left to right. So it goes through the 2-band EQ first, then the clipper, then the reverb. Here you also have the ability to choose, for example, for audio tracks, you can record more things onto it. So here you can choose your microphone. Here I can choose which one I'm using right now. So currently I'm using a virtual microphone, which is this one connected to. So now you can see that my voice is coming through on the gain meter here. An important part of especially when you're recording your own audio, is to calibrate your microphone. So this is where it sets your microphone levels to be exactly where it's supposed to be. So if you can see, my average is around here, like 1/4 of the bar. If I calibrate it and hit start, then it's done. And now it's a little bit higher up, which is beneficial for you as you're recording. There will also be a bigger difference between the noise floor that is natural for all mics and then your actual signal that you want to keep. So calibrate, really important. Good stuff. Another thing to note is this little box right here. And here we have the preset selector. So the preset selector allows us to choose different presets, which have a bunch of different effects on it already. So if we go to indie acoustic, for example, you can see it changes out all of these effects. There's also a lot more controls that you can make use of. Same thing goes for the next one and the next one. If you wanted to make use of any of our presets, here they are. So here you can just go in and choose echo. You got echo, everything is pre-selected for you. Good stuff. Finally, let's say you managed to make a preset that you really, really like, and you want to be able to use this in all of your projects. Then you go to save preset. And you can save your own preset here. It is saved and stored on the cloud, so you don't have to worry about it. It's always going to be there when you need it. Here you can also change your category, so you can change it here and choose another category or subcategory of that specific instrument type, hit OK, save preset, and then you're done. This was all for audio. Now let's get into MIDI and software instruments. So here we have the keyboard. Once your keyboard is up, you can play it on a MIDI keyboard like I'm doing now, or you can play it on a regular typing keyboard, or you can also play it by using your mouse. If you want to connect a MIDI controller, just make sure that your MIDI controller is connected. You have all of your drivers installed. Once that is done, Soundtrap needs to realize which MIDI controller you want to connect. So how to set that is to go into settings, go to MIDI settings, and here you can select your controller. I am now controlling with my launch key, so I'm gonna choose my MIDI out, hit OK, and now with this, I can play. In an instrument like this, like a software instrument, we have a bunch of different presets. You don't have to scroll through all of them. You can just go and click here. Here, you will see all of the different top categories that we have. So we have synths, keys, orchestral, etc. And within those, we have subcategories where you can more easily find what you're looking for. So if, let's say I'm just looking for some organ, I can do that from here, pick one. That sounds quite nice. I'm going to add that to it. Just click it and it's already selected. So once that is done, you close it down and now you can play. Here in the instrument section, we also have something that is really, really fun, which is a chord feature. Now, the chord feature is basically a playable instrument in and of itself, but it's set to your project key. So what Soundtrap does, if you add a loop, for example, that already has a key, so I'm just going to add like Salam, for example, it will automatically set it to F. Or you can just choose your own key and everything will be stretched and moved to the right key for you. Now, in the chords feature here, we have all of the different chords set for you. And this is all being played in key. Now, we have different sets here. If you go to the basic here, you can choose basic, EDM, or hip hop. And they sound a little bit different. It's a little bit of like different flavors, whatever you like. So if we listen to it now. Finally, to make this a little bit more interesting and not just sound like block chords, we have playing styles on the far right. So here we can change it to soul stabs, for example. Or if you want it to be like more of an arpeggiator thing, you can do dreamer. What you can also do is that you can play these chords to play around with it a lot more using your Q, W, E, R, as you can see in the bottom left corner of each of these boxes. Finally, we have the piano roll. And piano roll is a sort of simplified view of what is being played and when. So here you can see that this corresponds to the same time. The playhead is moving together with it. Now, if I wanted to zoom in to make sure I have a little bit more resolution, I can do that. So here, let's say I don't like that this note is right here. I can just click and drag and move it down. And here you also have the pointer tool, your pen tool, your velocity tool, and your delete tool. So if I wanted to delete two notes, I'll just click them right there. Change my pen tool to go in here instead. And you can move these around however you want. Finally, velocity. Velocity will show you how hard you're playing one of these notes. So for example, if we go into a piano, let's say, once we're here, if I want this to be very soft, I select all of the notes, select my velocity tool, click and drag all the way down. The longer the white little bar is, the harder the note is going to be played. So now, very soft. If I want it to be super hard, drag it all the way up. And now, super dramatic change. Up top, we have a bunch of different other settings. We have file, edit, settings, tutorials. Then you have your undo, redo, and you also have your time restore. So let's say you saved something, but you want to go back to a previous version. You can click this and you can jump back to a previous save point. Finally, you have the title name of your project. You have your, watch your eyes, light mode, and dark mode, and then you have your export. And here you can download it as a MP3 file, WAV file, OGG file, or even a MIDI file. And there's also the last one being auto mastering if you want it to be turned on or off. For the sake of keeping it simple, leave it on. But once you start getting a little bit more used to it, once maybe, let's say you want to master your own tracks, you turn this off and you can send it over to the mastering engineer. And with all of that said, well done making it through the video. I know it's a long one, but this makes sure that you know exactly where you're at when you're using Soundtrap. Now in the background, I'm putting up an old VOD of me making the trunk demo for one of the Soundtrap originals that I will show you the result of at the end of the video. Now, if you do have any more questions, leave them in the comments down below and we'll make sure to make a video around that. And if you want to know more, we have an Ask the Producer series that walks through everything from mixing to sampling. And there's a whole series of breakdowns of different genres and artists to see how their production works and how we can recreate that in Soundtrap. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.